And don't worry about what you are doing. The recording will record the presentation. So it won't record you hard at work and doing your thing over there. So welcome everybody to the Social Media Strategy Revamp. I am Sue Koch, your host for today's webinar workshop. And so I am actually going to go ahead and make sure everyone is muted. And then throughout the presentation, feel free to add questions in the chat. I want to move along in the presentation and the workshop, but since we are working the workbook, I do want you guys to ask any questions that you need in support of moving ahead throughout the webinar. So feel free to do that. And then I may unmute some things if we've got some good questions that can move us along through the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here also to avoid any background noises or things that might occur. But like I said, always feel free to pop up in the chat. You can use the chat to ask me a question privately, or feel free to post a question to everyone in the group. You can manipulate that. And if you do have any slowdowns or anything, feel free to, if there's other Wi-Fi around you that you can turn off, or other things that might be running on your laptop, sometimes that can help speed things up if you appear to be running into any issues. And hopefully my internet is friendly throughout this as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and dive in. Feel free to also, if you have your gallery up, you can minimize that so that you can see the entire presentation, and move that around your screen however that works best for you. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive in. So welcome to the Social Media Strategy Revamp webinar workshop. I'm not sure if any of you have done a webinar workshop in this virtual environment. So I have done a couple and it's worked out pretty well. The one thing I cannot do that I do in a typical workshop is sort of walk around the room and check on you as we do the work, but that is the goal. So this is going to be sort of a dual training, but really getting you guys hands-on to work this workbook to map out a foundational level of strategy for your upcoming social media plans. And this workbook is intended to be something that you can continue to use, repeat, repurpose, grow, add to it over time. And so the goal of this really is to make sure that you're fully aware of what a social media strategy is, the components of that, and really starting to map out that process. Now, certainly a full social media strategy when I work one-on-one with clients can be a much longer process, but this is a great way to get started, and in a budget-minded fashion, which is so important to us small business owners these days, get you moving ahead. So, to start off, I recently, and actually earlier in the year, and I think a couple of you were on this webinar, did a social media 2020 trends webinar. And what was so interesting about that trends webinar was that it did not come up during the time of COVID and shelter in place, but it had so much relevance to that time and what people started to tap into and use for social media. And Jay Baer, who is an amazing social media strategist and expert, his company is Convince and Convert. One of his quotes from a podcast was used in that webinar. And what he said was, if you have a strategy over a year old, you almost don't have a strategy. Things have changed so quickly that what we need to succeed in this environment has shifted right under our feet. And you would think that this is a quote related to what's been happening with our new virtual world of working. But no, I believe he actually said this either in late 2019 or early 2020 with regard to how social media is shifting. But this is really relevant to what we're experiencing today. And sort of what inspired me to create this workshop was, again, small business owners are being budget minded and going through a lot of shifts and pivots. But what we've also experienced is a lot of people learning new things on social media so they could quickly do things virtually. And that was fantastic. But we did that without a plan, and it's been working. But now that we're going back to what may be some of the traditional environment, but while also at the same time still doing things virtually, we're really creating a hybrid model. So what inspired this workshop was to say, okay, we've learned a lot of new skills. Now we're doing different things, possibly live, still hybrid model, virtual. So let's put a plan in place for those tactics that we started and surround that with some structure. So some of the key discussion points that we'll be hitting today, we'll be going over the importance of strategy. We'll talk about what are the different components of a social media strategy. And that is all within this workbook that will actually be taking some moments where I will just keep silent and have you guys work the workbook and do the work. So that may be a little awkward on the Zoom webinar, like I said, because I can't come around and check on you. But during those moments, just get heads down and work the workbook. And that may either be by you typing on another screen on your computer, that may be you taking notes, perhaps you've printed off the workbook and you can write on it right there. So do what works best for you. And during that time, do feel free to ask questions, unmute yourself, ask questions, ask me in the chat, because hopefully everyone will be doing the work. And if you'd like to, I may ask some of you to share some of the things that you've noted, as that can help inspire ideas for others as well. So what or why a social media strategy? A lot of people, small business owners, but also Fortune 1000 company CEOs even admit to shooting from the hip on social media. But what's so important about having a strategy is that you have a plan in place from which to act in accordance with. Even sometimes that energy of, what am I going to do today? Oh my God, I need to post something, can be draining. And then it takes time away from our day because we're trying to move on a dime and do something that we did not plan. So having a strategy is going to help you to eliminate overwhelm in your day-to-day activities. It's going to actually give you an alignment with your purpose. And we're going to get into working some of that in the workbook. And what that means is, as well, is if we're shooting from the hip when we think, oh crap, I've got to get a post out, it may not be in true alignment with our purpose or business goals. And it's so important to have that message in the context of the content that we're sharing. It's going to give you some structure. And that structure may be that you decide every morning at 8 a.m., I'm going to have my coffee and do my post of the day. Or that structure could be that every Sunday afternoon, I spend a few hours and create all of my content and get everything implemented for the week. Whatever that is that works for you, it's going to give you that structure and peace of mind. And it is going to save you money. And how is that? Well, it's going to save you money because time is money. And if you're spending a lot of time each day or every few days frantically thinking about, oh my gosh, I haven't posted something, this event is coming up, or I need to fill my pipeline and I haven't done anything on social media in a while, what do I do? That's a lot of time and energy, which comes back to money. Because if you're not expending that extra energy that's outside of having structure, you could be making money during that time, right? It's also going to help keep you accountable. If you have a plan in place, and we're going to get into talking about having a content calendar as well, or even just a list of things that you're planning to do and distribute, it's going to keep you accountable to that plan, and you're more likely to put it into effect. And then finally, measurement. We're going to get into some basics of metrics and putting some KPIs around your goals and what you're doing on social media, because that's also going to help the accountability. It's also going to help save you time and money, because at the end of a period of time, whether that's weekly or monthly or quarterly, if you look at your metrics and something is doing great, well, then by all means do more of that. But if something isn't working, well, then maybe you need to pivot and shift that. And so that's where that's going to also save you time and money, because you're going to do what works and stop doing what doesn't work. And ultimately, I always like to say, we're going to be eliminating unsuccessful random acts of social media marketing. So you're going to do what works. You're going to have a plan and accountability. You're going to measure it. And because it's going to work better, you're going to do better business, grow more leads, and get more out of it. So what are we going to be working today? What are the components of a social media strategy? And the components of a social media strategy really are also the components of a regular business strategy, right? It's just that we pull them down to a different level of how it's going to be implemented. So we're going to talk about goals, and that starts with your business goals and then translates them into social media. A lot of times people think, I want to go viral on Instagram, or I want 1 million followers on YouTube and make money off ads. Well, that's not really a business goal. That's a lower level goal. So we want to start with your high level business goals and align them into what social media can do for you to serve it there. We want to talk about your audience. The other thing that happens when we just shoot from the hip is that we just put something out that we think people want to see, but we don't really know, is it aligning with our audience visually, in language, in sentiment? And this process will help you do that, which makes everything that much more successful. We'll go through some competitive analysis, and you'll have some worksheets that you can take back to repeat the process. We'll talk about content strategy and start to give you the foundations of how you can put that in place by continuing to blow the workbook out further and map these ideas out deeper. And then we'll also talk about brand voice and values. And this is something that's so important. Again, when we're shooting from the hip and feeling like we need to get out on social media because we haven't posted in a while, that's when you see these posts like, check out my new blog, or I did this thing, and a picture and a link. And what does that really mean to people? So we want to do the things that align with your brand voice and values so that it's consistent, has impact, and really showcases your brand personality. We want to identify a channel focus. We don't necessarily need to say, I'm going to be everywhere and do all of the things. And there's a lot of slides in here that have some data that might bust some myths around who is where on social media, but also help you identify where you want to focus. And then, of course, metrics. We want to talk about measurement and what's going to serve you best in the phase that you're in. And finally, reputation management along with customer service, PR, and communications is a really important component of strategy. And I have honorable mention here because that's also a lot of work, and that can often be tacked on depending where you're at in your process, but that takes a lot more time. So we're not actually going to work that in this session, but I do want to mention it because it can be a very important part of your strategy, depending on your business and how prevalent and public you are on social media. So with that, we're going to get into our first section of working. So something here I want to note, everyone is in a different place. So we want to start with setting the foundation for, what in your heart and your mind right now, as well as we work the rest of this process, is the top level importance for you and your business. And that starts with your mission statement and what your purpose is behind what you're doing. And if you don't have this already solidly mapped out, that is just fine. For today, just start with perhaps, what's your elevator speech? And write that down. What are things that you are highly aligned with, and what is your purpose? Not just, I want to make ROI and sell the most of this or get the most butts and seats for that. Truly, what is your purpose? And that comes back to some trends that we're seeing in social media, which is purpose-driven companies are seeing higher market share gains and grow 3 times faster on average than their competitors. So if your mission aligns with a purpose that you are then also putting out there on social media and allowing people to experience that, you're going to see some much more exceptional growth than those that don't build this into their planning and their messaging. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you a few minutes here. So probably just maybe about 2 or 3 minutes to write down your mission and purpose. It could be a statement. It could just be some adjectives and words and language that will set your mindset for the rest of the workshop today. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes in silence here to do your thing, and feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Okay, how's everyone feeling about that? Ready to move on to our next section, and you can continue to write these out and expand. And so whatever it is you wrote down there, I want you to hold that in heart and mind for the rest of the effort, as well as anything that you continue to do on social media. So now that we've got that overarching message in our mind and written down, I want you to identify your priority business goals. And let's just start with a top 3 or even a top 1. You know, we're working sort of the short goal today. And so that you can repeat this process, right? So we're going to go through a process that you can repeat and continue to build upon. So think about what your top 1 or top 3 goals are. And now this isn't about, I want to monetize my YouTube channel and make $1 million from ads, or I want to go viral with my Facebook Live every week, right? We're not there yet. Okay, so this is more of your overall business goals, and think of SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. So maybe this is, I would like to build my pipeline by 25% from last quarter. Or maybe this is, I want to increase my mailing list by 100 people a month. Perhaps this is, I want to achieve the same ROI that I did last year without pandemic, using a hybrid model of virtual and traditional business. So think about what those high-level business goals are, and I'll just give you a minute or 2 here to continue writing this out. Excellent. Is there anyone who would like to share one of their goals that they'll be working today? Feel free to unmute yourself and share a goal if you'd like. We can keep you accountable. No takers?
I'll take it. Goal 1, I want to increase my talent pool across the country.
Wonderful. And so tell us a little bit about that, Rose, what your business is.
My business is operagram.com, singing telegrams with an operatic twist. The mission is to provide opportunities to opera singers who, in this time of COVID-19, have been negatively impacted by COVID-19 itself, and to spread joy through the operatic voice for life celebrations.
Love it. And this time has, so that's a great thing that you're sort of leveraging what's happening now to expand your business in a different way, right? By bringing those people onto your team and doing these sneaky virtual gifts that you're doing, right?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, I love that. Anyone else want to share a goal? All right.
Hey, it's Catherine. I'll share.
Excellent.
So I'm all about lead generation from social. I would like to get 2 prospect calls a week from it if I was actually doing my work.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a great goal. And Catherine, do you want to share what those prospects are looking for?
Those prospects are in career transition or thinking of making a career transition. And I help them find their right next step, taking into account their whole life state.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, ladies. I appreciate that. So now we're going to take one of those goals and work into the next slide. And again, I want you to continue this process after we're done today to take it further. And so if you move on to the next slide, here's where we get into the specifics of social media, right? So as, for example, Rose looks to grow her team, and Catherine looks to get those leads coming in, and whatever the rest of you have noted as your goals, let's now take a look at, okay, so how do I expect social media to do that for me? Or what can I do with social media? So again, we're still not looking at necessarily, I want, 30,000 likes on my Facebook page, because if I do that, I know I'll get 2 leads a week, right? That's not necessarily true. So let's think a little bit more about what that might look like. And it may not even be so channel specific yet, and we'll get there. But it may be more about, I want to do a series of content or videos that appeal to an audience in a way that they're going to react and sign up on my lead generation form, by which I can then email them through my newsletter and build my pipeline. It may be, if it's ROI related, I want to set up sales into social media so that more people can access and purchase my product online. So think of it from that kind of perspective. Again, not just I want to go viral, I want big numbers. Think about how you see social media supporting that goal and helping you to achieve it. So I'm going to give you a couple more minutes here. Okay. So you'll see there's a couple more slides there that you can continue to take back and work with you. Keep the ideas flowing. As we work, does anyone want to share what they've come up with for how social media will support their first goal?
Sure. I would use industry-specific groups on Facebook to attract a talent pool. encourage them to sign up at chicagowebmaven.com to start their own web presence, because many artists find that to be not affordable, and to offer them the opportunity to have a branded page that they can leverage to get orders for singing telegrams through web video conferencing.
I love it. Well done. Nice. Anyone else want to share? How social media will support your goals?
I'll share.
Great.
So build awareness, spark interest, and amplify reach. I'm really looking for the amplification, because my email list or whatever is frighteningly small.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so then that may be a lead gen opportunity for you through that awareness and reach to grow that. Perfect. Anybody else?
I'll share. So our mission is, just to give everyone context, is to break the cycle of poverty by supporting artisans in developing countries and organizations domestically sell their products at a fair market value so that they can support their families with some of the basic essentials. So our organization is 10,000 Villages, and we're located in Oak Park, Illinois. And one of our goals was obviously to be able to increase brand awareness and share our mission with others. And so the way I broke down expectations that social media could help with that would be to increase the brand awareness, educate about our mission, connect with others, like-minded people, be able to share specific stories about our artisans, and then also convey how our own shopping behaviors and decisions can really make a difference for others.
Love it. That's beautiful. Yeah, and the storytelling that you mentioned there is so important. It'll be a great thing that we'll get into in the content section. Thank you so much, everybody. So let's move on to the next section. We've got a couple more pages here. Like I said, this was drafted for you to really take back and keep working and growing. So now the next piece we want to talk about, you have your goals and you want to build that reach and brand awareness and amplification, but to who? Who are these people, right? And so it's very easy to say anyone can buy my service or sign up for what I do or join my community, but especially when we're working social media, we really need to think about how we're framing our content so that we can achieve those goals. So we want to make sure that we really define our target audience. And again, for today's purposes, there may be a wide variety of people that you can reach. But to start off, you really want to hone in on a focus. So let's think about that primary goal that you're working right now. Who is that audience? And you can certainly shift and blow that out over time. What's important to people these days? What trends are showing that's important is their need for what you're offering and the cost, their own personal fulfillment that they get from it, how available and easily available it is, positive reputation via social proof, and authenticity. And what do I mean by you have 8 seconds? You have 8 seconds to put that in their mindset so that they continue to interact, read, click. So it has to be done quickly. And this is why it's so important to identify audience. Because when you think about, there might be a product out there that you love and would totally use, but if it's a picture of someone you don't relate to, if you're a 32-year-old woman and the picture is of a 72-year-old man enjoying this work, or a video of someone speaking to a different audience, that's not going to connect with you. So we want to think about our audience up front, because then down the road, when we create that content, written word, visual pieces, we know we're appealing to those people. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't reach a wide variety, but what it means is that you might want to consider for your messages on social media, you may have some that appeal to that 72-year-old man. You may have others that appeal to the younger person of color. You may have some that appeal to, a woman who's a single mom. You may have some appeal to, the LGBTQ community and people who are traveling. So you want to think about not just your written word, but the visual pieces, as well as the message, and identifying the needs of these people. And that's what we're going to do next. And I also included this little snippet of the generations defined, because I read something actually this morning that said, did you know the oldest millennial is now 39? So while you hear a lot of talk about, oh, those young millennials, well, you know what? They may not all necessarily be that young and doing the things you think they're doing on social media, right? And what I giggled at earlier was seeing Catherine's message that she's that negative review seeker, right? So statistics show that 82% of people specifically seek out negative reviews. And I'll admit I do that as well. If I'm on a social media site, Yelp, Amazon, I'll do that reverse sort to see what people have to say. But then I also take a look at the reviewer, and this is very common as well, is that people will also look at the reviewer and what those negative reviews have to say as it bears to the greater ones. But we want to position all of these things as we think about who we're speaking to. So I'm going to give you some more time here to work the next couple of slides. And I type in the company name and scam or fraud. Yeah, that's a great way too. If things that show up on Google will tell you, if it's a scam, and to really help support that review process. So the next couple of slides, and these repeat, so we're going to go through the exercise just on the first couple, and the others are there for you to continue to work and make copies of. But the first thing, I'm going to go over each slide and then give you some time to work both. The first slide, I want you to identify a primary audience segment that is sort of your top pick for the goal and intention that you're working today. And so what that might be then is really, it might be demographic, it might be geographic, it may be some of the examples I gave you, right? It might be the single mother with children in grade school. It might be, a millennial professional who's seeking a career transition. It may be the empty nesters that are looking for a community. So think of what that is. And also think of, what does that person do? Do they golf? Do they like wine and concerts? Do they like camping? Who are some other brands that they might follow? Who are other people like you that they might follow? Where do they purchase? Whether it's virtual, online, or in real life. So create sort of an idea of this person, these people, and kind of make notes on that in the audience segment. And then what are their fears? And especially right now, we're coming into things that you as a business owner have to really address, perhaps, people's fears, whether it's coming into a store, working with you in person, is working with you virtually going to work as well as it otherwise did? As I build into this hybrid way of doing business, and generally, what are some of the fears that they may have? Not just are related in working with you, but the needs that they have to purchase your services, join your community, be part of what you're doing. And then on this positive side of that, what are their goals? What do they need? What are they trying to accomplish? Make it about them. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes on this slide to map that out about these people that you are trying to reach and serve and help. I invite anyone to also share in the chat, as Catherine did, as I'm gonna skip the sharing conversation on this one to keep moving into the next section, but please feel free to share your ideas and thoughts of what you're writing in the chat for the group to see. Will help to get to know one another and also maybe give you some ideas. A few more seconds on this slide. And so now as we think about knowing a segment of our audience, what their fears are and what their goals are, I want you then to take that to the next level and identify for that same audience segment, how do you solve that problem? So those fears that they have, that's a need that they need to be filled. And how do you fill that? The goals that they have, how do you serve those goals? How do you solve their problems? So let's make note here. Think about a few ways that you fill that gap. You take that fear to a joy or a relief. You take that need into accomplishment of a goal. Take some time to write that out. Thanks for sharing in the chat, Catherine and Michelle. And that could be, Michelle, it could be 2 segments even. If the book covers both in some way, there could be, you work this exercise for both categories as well as the upcoming content exercise for both categories. And then your social media has perhaps a balance of that so that you're appealing to both audiences. Yeah. I love it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to move us on to the next section. Thank you so much for sharing in the chat. And we'll do some more public group sharing down the road, but I want to make sure we're moving ahead and keeping you moving along since you can continue the process as we wrap. So the next thing I want you to think about now is competitors. Other people like you. And the great thing about social media is that social media is a great place to do some competitive research. And so this is another, we've got a few pages of this so that you can take it back and work as many in there as you'd like. But right now, I'd like just to take a couple of minutes and think about a brand or a business that would be considered a competitor of yours or someone similar. And just a couple of minutes here as well, but here's where if you want to navigate your laptop or get on your device and take a look at Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and take a look at what a competitor is doing. And this is definitely a process I want you to take back with you and really spend, give yourself at least an hour, maybe even 2, if you haven't done this kind of exercise before, to do that, to just zone in, take a good chunk of time and list out all of those competitors, because this is a great opportunity to learn more about what they're using and how it works for them. Not just, and in the following section here, not just about how many, right? But who are they? Start to really peek around and explore. What are the strengths and weaknesses that you see come through on their social media channels or really anywhere on the digital landscape? This could be their website, their LinkedIn profiles, their YouTube channel. What do you see on Google? Obviously, we don't have a lot of time for all of that right now, but this is to start the process of these kinds of exercises that you can do. What kind of content do you see on their channels that inspires you? That might give you some good ideas. Doesn't mean you're going to copy it, but if they're a competitor of yours that's talking about a hot trend or an important topic or something you see that really builds great engagement and conversation, you can do that and make it your own. Have your own conversation around those trends. So let's just take a few minutes, pick a brand, look at a social channel, and start getting some ideas and see how this can really be a great exercise for you to continue in a greater format in a longer period of time. That's excellent, Rose. Thank you for that. Rose says you can get your industry's NAICS code from census.gov and use it to get reports from ibisworld.com. That's great. I will put some of these suggestions as well in the follow-up notes to everybody. Appreciate that. Has anyone seen anything interesting in a competitor or thought of something a little bit differently? I know it's just been a few minutes to kind of practice the exercise. if you've seen a strength or a weakness or something someone is doing, that might be a good idea or something to avoid. We'll get into some of that in the brand exercise as well. Ooh, lightning surprise over here. All right, so keep going through this process. Daily live streams. Oh, okay, so Catherine says one of her competitors is doing daily live streams on LinkedIn. That doesn't sound fun at all. Why not? Is it the daily or the live stream part that doesn't sound fun? And this actually, okay, yeah, and daily is a big commitment. That's a big commitment. And that actually, this is a great transition to get us into the next section as well, which is the content strategy, right? And live streaming is a huge part of this. Oh, Catherine, you could say something very useful every day. That's something that we all, I think, have a challenge with, but could definitely share. But so when you think about content strategy, a lot of times people think blog. But content strategy is really all of the content that you may have that goes out across social media. So that could be blogs, white papers, your day-to-day posts, images, videos, could be live streaming, could be recorded, could be interviews. It's a whole slew of pieces of work. And the thing that I like to get into to help people simplify this is sort of a hub and spoke model of, if you have a larger piece of content, like Michelle talked about writing a book, and I've worked with a few authors where you have so much content if you've written a book. So how you map out those themes that we'll get into in our next exercises may be based on chapters of that book and giving people nuggets, having videos. So if you have a blog and a video and some images, all with a single theme, you're really repurposing a same theme that you have into different pieces of content that people consume in different ways, so that it looks different and fresh and new, and you're able to create several posts without really reworking and starting from scratch each and every time. And I know Catherine has a very popular ebook out on the internet that helps people who are in career transition. So again, the hub and spoke model there might be that larger piece where you create different short interviews that, or short videos that maybe you don't do every day, but you do on a consistent basis to continue to place that message. So think about what content you already have. That's where I love to start with people, because it can be overwhelming to think of, I have to do all this new stuff. So what do you already have? And that may not also be, you don't have to already have a book or lead gen forms or an ebook or a video series. Your content, your head is full of it. You've got so much right up here that you probably just have not translated into words yet. And part of that then is organizing it so we can get it out of here, where it's like a big cobweb of ideas, and wrangle it down into a list. So we're going to talk about types as well as themes. But I want you to start with types first, and maybe do this in a way that helps you to prioritize. Because what do we all hear about today? Video, right? And we may not all be ready for it, or we may not think we're ready for it. But there are a lot of ways to jump over those comfort zones. So right now, I just want you to think about everything, right? Everything you could possibly do. So that could be creating images, might be graphic design, might be photos. Maybe you're purchasing stock photos or getting free. So when you think image, don't think, oh, I'm, Matt's a photographer, so you could hire him to do that. But if you can't afford that, what are some ways you can get your own images? So you don't have to be a professional designer, professional videographer. Everyone is doing this grassroots these days. So think about images, videos, blogs you've already written. Even if they're 5 years old, are they evergreen? Can you rewrite it and make it current again? Do you have a book? Do you have an ebook? Do you have articles, presentations that you've done that are sitting on a drive somewhere? I know I have tons of presentations that are sitting on a Google Drive that when I go search for something and I go, oh my God, I have that. I never did another thing with it. We've got all kinds of those things. So fill in these little bubbles with some of these ideas of types of content that you already have or could easily create from the brilliance in your mind. And if you are averse to video, then I highly recommend you put it in the very first bubble. Challenge yourself. To do things a little bit differently. And I also, at the end of this, I'll ask if you're all willing to share your email addresses with each other, or perhaps your LinkedIn profile, so you can all connect with one another, so that you can help each other with this as well, maybe keep each other accountable. And for example, Catherine is doing a great video series. You can watch that for ideas. You can find each other and follow each other's social media channels to give each other a little boost. So question here that Denise asks, is live video better than pre-recorded? It really accomplishes a different goal. So pre-recorded videos may be more planned, content that you're delivering to educate, inspire, etc. Live video is great if you want to have more of a dynamic conversation and are hoping for some engagement and Q&A along the way. So there's sort of different intention behind each of those things. And then live video can also become pre-recorded. So if you do a Facebook Live and Instagram Live, you can download that video and then edit it and package it up and place it somewhere else. So you can really even get into a whole video strategy around how you're using video, both pre-recorded and live, to reuse and repurpose content across your social media channels. So let's move on to the next slide and just take a minute or two here to now think about, you've noted the type of content, and that may have also given you some ideas around themes, right? Because I said, think about what you've already got. So maybe those are videos you already have, or presentations you already have, or blogs you already have, or ideas in your mind that you know you want to get down. So now let's think about, what are these themes? So these are the topics. And you might want to also think about this in context of each of these little bubbles might be a week, or it might be a month of the year. And that helps us then place this into content calendar form that we'll just talk about briefly later on. But what's great about having sort of a month or a week is that you can have a higher level topic. So for example, if, like I said, I have a bunch of presentations that I go, oh my God, I have this presentation and I didn't further this content. So I have a metrics webinar, I have a metrics presentation that I haven't done in a while. I might put metrics as that top bubble, and that might be the month of July. And then what I can do is each month in July, I can say week 1 is Facebook metrics, week 2 is Twitter metrics. For Catherine, maybe she has, somebody who was furloughed during COVID and wants to find that next opportunity. And maybe each week of that month is a success story that she had of working with someone in that particular situation and what they did to overcome it. Michelle's writing a book. Maybe each theme is a chapter. with a little story nugget that can be shared. So think about the breakdowns that you can create of themes. And then later that will help you break this down even further into the little nuggets of social media contents and posts that you can create. Okay. So hopefully you've gotten some themes there that you can continue to further blow out. And then align, that some of the next steps you'll have is to think about the themes, what you'll be discussing, and then how you can develop them or repurpose them from one type to another type that you have on the prior slide. And something I want to also point out as it relates to content is a very popular, and you've probably heard of the rule of thirds. And so a lot of times what you see is people constantly just selling on social media, right? Or maybe they're afraid of selling and they're just constantly inspiring and making people feel happy, but you don't really know how to buy their product or hire them for their services. So it's about finding that balance. And so the rule of thirds is the 3 Ps: personal, point, and promote. And this actually comes from a book from Neil Wilkins from way in the early days of social media, and has just consistently been used and retermed into many other 3 things. But his original were these. And what that means is personal means you're getting to know the person, the brand, the business as a human. It personalizes your communications. And so in social media, it's the social part, right? Getting to know the characters behind the brand is much more engaging, and it makes people feel more warm and trust toward you. Point means signposting. And what signposting means is really it gets into curation. So that could be third-party blogs, articles, videos, content that your target audience finds engaging and useful. And it can also be an indicator of a bigger brand that has more brand awareness to let other people know, oh, this is Rose's style, or these are the types of products that, or artisans that Claire is in alignment with. Susan might share things from, I was going to give an example, and I can see the man in my head right now, but I can't think of him. But, Susan might give some examples of some top-notch marketing strategists and experts, but people that, the people in her market can't necessarily hire, but they could hire Susan. So by sharing those things from highly respected influencers, third parties, media journals, etc., you let your audience know who you align with and what you do, And it's also a way of having other pieces of content that you don't have to create, but that you can share and put your ideas, 2 cents, and spin on. And then the third piece is promote. So, but again, we don't want to do the old school promotional marketing. Hey, go, now that I've used personal content and done some curation, go buy my stuff at this link, right? So it's really still about thinking about the educational marketing, the relationship building, and not just the selling, but really speaking to those people, as we did in the exercise, toward their fears and alleviating those fears, providing relief to those fears and helping them achieve their goals. So as you map this out further and continue to think about your implementation, so think about the themes that you're going to create, in the type of media you're going to deliver them in, and how do you do them in a personal, point, and promote way. So let's take a topic, for example. If Matt is talking about the importance of branding in photography for your headshots, he might do a personal post about how he had a real bad one back in the day and what happened as he progressed in his photography, and personalizes his experience in what some profiles look like. Maybe he does a point by curating some articles that show some expertise, and then promotes through a series of success stories that his clients have experienced by taking something they had before that was a selfie with someone's arm around them to the work that he created to really up-level their brand. So that's just a quick example of how you can take your theme, content types, and place them into these different buckets. So continue to go through those exercises. And then I just want to sort of point out the, oh, did I skip? I see one slide here. Did that move? Oh, it did not move. I want to talk about this one real quick. I had a little hiccup. So I'm going to share with you this resource. This is a content calendar that I've been using from HubSpot. It's a free giveaway that they have. HubSpot has all kinds of great free giveaways. And this is a great model then of mapping in your themes, your content types, and where you're posting it into a calendar. And you can customize this calendar and use it however you like. It's simply an Excel spreadsheet. But I've found it works great for me, as well as a lot of the clients that I work with, because it's not too heavily detailed. It just is sort of idea, type, theme. I'm going to get this out this week or on this day. So I'm going to share that with you guys if you want to use that as a resource. But now I'd like to get into now some thoughts around brand voice. So we've thought about our audience, the type of content, and the themes that we're going to create. How do you deliver this message in a way that appeals to that audience and the persona that you've established? So something to keep in mind, and this also comes from the Trends webinar that I did earlier in the year, is some personality traits. And this comes from a couple of years ago. I haven't found the specific updates on the statistics, but the source, Sprout Social, has noted that they're still pretty much in alignment with today's expectations. 86% honesty. So these are some of the personality traits that you might have in your brand that maybe you should not be too afraid to put out there in your language or your images and videos. Honesty, friendly, helpful, funny, trendy, politically correct. Now, this may have changed a little bit in today's world, and that's up to you and how you present that, whether it's neutrality or aside, and snarkiness. So if these are, sometimes people ask me, hey, I'm pretty sarcastic. I've got an interesting sense of humor as a personal brand. Do I put that out there on social media? Absolutely. But it's certainly up to you as well. If you feel like something might be off-putting, maybe you tread lightly a little bit with that. But people want that honesty. I love that, Catherine. Yes, honest, authentic, appropriately irreverent. Well said. So don't be afraid to put your personality out there. And so these are some points that you can work in an exercise for yourself. So first, think about how you want to make customers feel. As loved or hated as Jeff Bezos may be these days, he did put personal brand into a good statement, which is personal brand is how people feel about you after you've left the room. So think about, what is that feeling you want those people to have? List some adjectives that describe your brand personality, or perhaps ask others. That's a great exercise, and this is a great excuse. Hey, I just did a webinar with Sue and she's making me ask you. Right? Sometimes we feel uncomfortable asking people these favors. Blame me. This is my homework. I'm sending an email to my top customers, my best friends, my top strategic partners. Give me some adjectives that you think describe my brand personality. Consider competitors, right? We did a quick exercise that I'd like you to continue on, looking at that competition. What is their brand voice? How do you sound different from them? And how is that better? What's your unique differentiation? What spin can you put on that? What brand voices do you enjoy and resonate with? So who do you align with and think, you know, this is a brand representation or competitor that I strive to be like? And what part of that resonates and hits home with you? And how do they do it? Look at examples of their content and posts that comes through on. And what do you not want to embody, right? What are some things that maybe you see on social media from competitors or brands that make you go, ooh, I wouldn't do that. That wasn't a good idea. So think about some of those things too. So there are slides for each of these questions on the following pages. I want to get through the rest of some of the content, but why don't you, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes and maybe just pick one of these to start working so that you have that feeling of something left undone when we end the webinar and you finish the process. Right? So there's a slide for each of these questions. So go ahead and pick one to work, or maybe you can get through a few in a couple of minutes while I let you work through this. So I hope this gives you some new thoughts and perspectives around perhaps how you can craft your content, how you come across on social media, whether it's in written word, visual media, support you in doing video and the conversations that you might have on video, whether it's live or pre-recorded. So continue to finish this exercise, work through each page, go through everything again, and really, really fill that out to establish what that message looks like, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. So now that we have these plans that we're going to continue to blow out, where do we do it? And I'm definitely not that social media consultant that says you must be everywhere and do all of the things, because that is overwhelming. And most of us small business owners don't have the time or the resources for that. Now, I am definitely the huge proponent for you getting your brand and name on every single social channel so that someone else doesn't take it, right? Doesn't mean you have to use it. But at least get your brand and that name that you want, the social media handle that you want across LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and maybe even Snapchat and TikTok, just in case, because you never know. But you don't have to work them all. And one thing that often comes to mind, as I mentioned the millennial example earlier, there's a lot of myths in how people are using social media. So if you do have a younger demographic, like for example, I know Ed and Julie are trying to bring in some of the younger demographic into Temple, right? And so you might think, well, hey, they're all on, Snapchat and I'm not doing that, or they're all on Instagram, but my Facebook page is stronger. That's okay. Because actually the statistics show things a bit differently. And it's more around how they're using the channels. So you may not see that millennial or certainly Gen Z speaking up and having a lot of conversation and participation on Facebook, but they're there. They're following brands. They're watching Facebook Lives. They're, paying attention to the conversations that are happening on pages and, public figures that they're following. And they're doing that on Facebook and Instagram. So if you have a strong presence on Facebook and your audience might be skewing younger, don't feel like, oh my God, I have to run and divert. They're there, okay? So work what you have, make that stronger. And then as you're really good at implementing what you're mapping out here, then start to diversify into other platforms. Now, I'm not gonna go through every statistic here, because I want this, like I said, the goal is that you take this back with you as a resource that you can continue to work. And my goal with presenting some of these statistics is, one, to bust some myths, but also to help you choose, where do you start? If right now you've been doing Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and your head's gonna explode, pick what you're doing best first, and then start to spread it across the different social channels. Okay, so we see that 74% of Gen Xers are on Facebook. If you're strong there and that meets your target audience, keep on hitting that hard. There's a lot of different channels out there that operate in different ways. So zone in on what's going to work for you well first. And we can see just from this basic chart that YouTube and Facebook are still at the top, and others continue to grow. Your audience is everywhere. So do what you do best first, and then worry about spreading across the other channels. And so you'll see I've got just some, what I thought were some standout statistics on the different social media channels. So please do take some time to go through this. Things like 15% of users shop on Facebook. So if you're a retail location, is your store active there? 83% of users discover new products and services on Instagram. Does that work for you? Stats are fun, right? I know, that's why I created all these slides, and it's a lot to go through. We could talk about these for 2 hours in and of itself. So please go back and use that as a resource. Michelle has a question. How does a business owner know when to post on their business LinkedIn and when to post on their individual LinkedIn page? Is there a golden rule? That's a great question. The golden rule is more about your goals. Similar to Facebook, it can be hard to get visibility on a LinkedIn company page unless you're doing advertising. So what I often recommend is, if you do a post on your LinkedIn company page, let that be there for maybe a couple of days, and then share that post from your LinkedIn company page to your personal LinkedIn profile. Also adding additional commentary as your personal self. On Facebook, when you share as an individual versus a page, you get 8 times more visibility in the newsfeed. And LinkedIn is similar. You get a little bit more visibility on pages on LinkedIn, but it's still tough to do. So that's why if your goal is to grow your LinkedIn page or your Facebook business page, same rule, share the content there first, let it be there a couple of days, and then share it on your personal profile at a different time on another day with some lead-in content, because that's going to then help give exposure to the LinkedIn company page. So I hope that helps. There's a lot of kind of strategy and tactic around that. So now you've got all the stats. You'll take a look at that. And then the question is, where do I focus? So ask yourself these questions. Where are you strong now? And fill this in. What channel are you best at now? What channel do you enjoy most? Maybe that's not the one you're doing. Maybe you're doing one because someone told you you should, but you really like something else. And that may be where you're strong in content, right? Maybe you're doing Instagram because you thought you should, but you hate pictures. Well, that's not a good match for you personally, right? We want to work what we're good at and what we enjoy. Doesn't always matter if the audience is there. Because whatever you do, wherever you go, your people are there. It's about working it well and meeting them. Where do you see a strong community forming? Perhaps the rise of Facebook groups and the popularity of people wanting to be a little bit more private and close-knit lend you to using Facebook so that you can build a group of a community of people that will feel safe within a group having conversations with you. Go back to that worksheet as you continue to build on this workbook and think about the types of content you wrote down and the ones that you'll really produce. If you're not going to take pictures, or you're not going to create things with a graphic designer or have fun in Canva as a non-designer or get stock photos or have Matt do a photo shoot for you, then maybe Instagram isn't the place for you. If you're going to do more article sharing, things that already have images, maybe article sharing on LinkedIn is the place for you. If you're willing to explore a little and go live, maybe Facebook and Instagram are for you. So think about what you will do and what's best for the platform that that matches to. Do you have a team? Brand advocacy is huge. One reason, like I said before, personal profiles get 8 times the reach on a newsfeed on Facebook and similar on other channels than a page. So if you have employees that are willing to share your content from your pages, from your business brand, this can be a great supportive structure for you. Find out what channels they're strong in. And that doesn't mean you have to follow it. You could share content on your Facebook business page and they can repurpose that onto their Instagram channel or their LinkedIn profile. So think about how that might work for you. And that might help you identify what your channels of choice are to work. So I'm going to wrap up by getting a little bit into metrics. I have a 2-hour webinar on metrics that, like I said, I just remembered is in my Google Drive that I need to bring back to life for current times. So this could be a very long conversation, but a few foundations that I want to set for you just to get started. First of all is to alleviate any fears or anxiety you might have around what doing well is, right? Facebook's average reach for a page is 5.5%. The average engagement is 0.09%. So if you have a following of 1,000 people and 15 people see your post, you're actually doing pretty good. So I want to bust some myths around the numbers that might already be in your mind around these things. Instagram average reach, 4.7. Average engagement, 1.6. Okay, thanks, Susan. You'll get the recording to wrap up the rest. And please type a yes, or she might be gone already. But let me know if you guys want me to share your information with each other, and I'll do that in the follow-up. So the numbers are low, right? So feel okay with that. Now that you're going to have a plan, those numbers will start to look better. So here are some things to think about with respect to metrics. What's your business objective? Are you in a brand awareness phase? You're new. Or maybe you're resurfacing from a plateau or a silent time. Metrics then might be the vanity metrics. People following you, people liking content. When you want to turn customers into advocates, are they engaging with you? Are they sharing your content? If you want to grow your mailing list, driving leads and getting sales, are you seeing the conversions of people clicking from LinkedIn to your lead form and you're getting that email address? Are you getting clicks to your website when you share a blog on Facebook or LinkedIn? Are you looking to improve customer retention? So the people that are already purchasing, already part of your community, are they giving you testimonials? Are they helping you to build that awareness and grow your following by doing brand advocacy types of posts? So these are some of the important things to look at where your phase of social media is, whether you're new, already in the ROI phase, or starting to recycle that. So here are some things that are seen in statistics. This is another thing that came from Hootsuite's analysis of last year, is that people are looking heavily to vanity metrics. And so I actually like to kind of flip this slide upside down, because we see only 29% want to inspire an emotional response. But if we inspire an emotional response, doesn't that then beget likes and follows, shares and retweets, interaction, revenue? So go ahead and take this slide and kind of check off and maybe put a priority, 1, 2, 3, 4. What's most important to you in spite of what most marketers might say, right? We want likes and comments, but you're not going to get likes and comments if you're not inspiring emotion. And you're going to inspire emotion by going back to the very start and tapping into that purpose that you noted. How that purpose meets the fears and the goals of the audience that we mapped out. And then how you create your content in a way that inspires emotion, because you're translating that purpose and sharing the, hey, that's me, through the visual media you use to appeal to your audience when you create that post or that blog or that ebook. It all comes together that way and leads to that ROI through this chain. So think about what comes to your gut first, right? Likes or ROI, but how do we get there if we're not there yet? And that's how I want you to see your movement throughout measuring your social media success. And so this one we can't do today yet because you have to do the other stuff first, but I've got another worksheet for you at the back of the book that you can then take and say, okay, maybe you give it 30 days, right? You need some time. I know you're all gonna hunker down all weekend and work this workbook. But truly, take some time. Maybe you even just put an hour a week or a couple hours on a Wednesday morning to go through this again and really think through it and map it out. Really hit hard that competitive research. Really fully blow out that goal. Send that email out. Ask your friends and your peers about those adjectives that define the brand you put forth. And then once you've implemented this into the chosen channel of choice, take this chart 30 days later and see what those numbers are. Or actually, take this chart next week and see what your baseline is. Then 30 days later, see how it's changed. And that's a great exercise to do, to see where you're at now. And these are really more about, there's a lot of the vanity metrics here, but also the engagement rate is important. The click-throughs are important. People mentioning your brand or sharing, that's important. That helps you elevate in the newsfeed. So use this as an initial metrics worksheet to go from as a baseline, as well as you implement the strategy that you've crafted and will continue to grow. So those are your next steps. Continue to work the workbook, create your process. And I'm going to include the link to that free HubSpot content calendar so that you can use that if you think that's something that's helpful. Research those competitors, see what they're doing, and use that to also continue to work the brand exercise. Identify and honor your purpose throughout. Always keep that as an underlying theme in everything you do. Choose your channel focus. Don't feel like you need to be everywhere. Give yourself some peace and say, all right, I'm everywhere now, but I'm just gonna focus on LinkedIn for 2 weeks or focus on Instagram for 2 weeks and see if I'm elevating by wrapping this package up into structure. And then use that little worksheet to measure and continue to inform your strategy. So I'm gonna feel free to everyone unmute yourselves or ask any questions. If you have to wrap, feel free to drop a yes in the comments there in the chat if you want me to share your info. And I'm gonna hang out here for a few minutes. If anyone does have some questions, I'm happy to hang on. So feel free to unmute and say hello and continue the conversation.
Hey, Sue, I just want to say thank you. That was super helpful.
Oh, good.
Because I know that I would never have carved out the time to really think this through if I didn't have you like sitting here. Okay, now think about this, Catherine. I just would never do it.
Good, I'm so glad. And that was really the goal because we all avoid that, right? We think, I gotta do my things that I'm doing so I don't have time to plan the things that I wanna be doing.
I have plenty of time, I just never would have.
Or that too. Good, and that was the goal. And I love your feedback too. You know, I thought of going a little longer to give you more time, but an hour and a half on a Zoom is also kind of, we start to get a little antsy. So I'd love your feedback on what might, work better. If that timing worked for you to get the starting process.
Yeah, no, that's the right amount of time. 2 hours on a Zoom, you're like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with Catherine. I think what you did, Sue, was great. And I think it really helped to form more of a process to think about how everything relates and how we can create a plan. I would say and 90 minutes is perfect amount of time for a workshop for Zoom, but maybe in the future you would consider doing like a follow-up.
Yeah.
So like we could, so if you needed to charge more for that, like that, it would include also like 30 days later, because that would really, I think, force some accountability as well.
That's a great idea
for all of us.
I love that.
So.
And you know what? I would be happy to, I'm going to take that in my new business model when I do this again and increase my price and have a follow-up accountability group. But because I love this idea, I invite you all to let's just do that. Okay. Let's do that. And I will put an email out and an invite out. Maybe what I'll do is one of those doodle so I can get the most of you. It may be hard to get all of us together again, but if this time works, maybe we do it again on a Friday. And thank you for that, Denise. Let's do that in about a month. I'll schedule.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I won't charge you guys again, but the next group I will.
Right.
Thank you. I love that.
I appreciate having the workbook. That's such an amazing tool. Thank you.
Good, I'm glad. And yeah, and please reuse it. If there's anything else that would help you to see that added, please let me know. But yeah, I hope that it's something that you can just continue to print off or reuse, save lots of copies. And if you wrote all over it or you did something online and marked it up and want a fresh one, you can just always download it again from that link.
My name is Ann, and I'm at 10,000 Villages with Denise, and I don't know if Claire is still on or not. This is not my area. I'm not a social media person. I'm really just a novice. So I was lost in the middle section about how to set goals and how to think about it. I'm good at setting goals.
Yeah.
In other ways. I'm trained as a fundraiser. So I'm good at setting goals. There's nothing more measurable than fundraising.
Yeah.
But knowing how to think about it is a new mindset. So I'm going to put my head together with Denise, is often my fallback position, and and I think we ought to get a group of us from 10,000 Villages to, you know, spend a morning going through this whole thing and doing it together.
Oh, that's a
So that
great
we could-
idea.
so that we can agree on what we really believe are our goals here, because we're really starting new too.
Yeah,
So my purpose here was just to sort of get some background.
excellent.
So anyway, thank you.
Good, thank you. I'm glad you were able to join us. And I love 10,000 Villages. I'll go in there to buy a present for somebody, and then that's when I come home
So,
and I
so tell us your five words.
my 5 words.
Never mind. I'm being a little facetious, but if you want to do it, I'm happy to hear them.
Well, let's see. Oh, the 5 brand words. Well, and I'll tell you, because I have done the exercise with other people and asked, you know, because it's hard for us to say those things about ourselves, whether it's what we desire or what we think we do. But what things that I have been told is energizing, motivating, educational. And I'm trying to think of the word. It's not like relaxing, but like freedom, like giving freedom, in that a lot of people feel like with social media, they hear so many messages about be everywhere, do all the things, hustle, 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 like the Gary Vaynerchuk. And that for me, it's like, pick what works, do one thing, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to do content? Great, then don't talk to people online, right? So giving freedom. So that would be, and then just, I think real, you know, I try to be real. Just, you know, I don't always do all the things myself, you know, and this kind of stuff helps me get back into order as well.
Like the dentist who never flosses.
Yeah, right. And website designers will tell you their websites are usually the worst.
Well, right. Yeah.
So, but thank you for the challenge, Anne. I appreciate you all being here.
Thanks.
Any other questions from anyone? All right, excellent. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I add that to my workbook, Catherine. All right, so everyone is going to get a recording of this. I'm also going to send you the link to that HubSpot calendar that I mentioned, so you can download that as well. And then I think everyone was on board with sharing their email, so I will do a full open email to you all so that you can stay in touch, you can stay accountable, you can follow each other on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you may be. And then I will get, thank you, Denise, that accountability session that you will all be able to come back for, and we'll get to regroup there. And keep me posted. Thank you all so much for being here and being my first workshop webinar guinea pigs.
That was awesome.
Good. I love seeing the heads down. I'm like, okay, they're either on their phone or they're working. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.